Southern Stone Restaurant.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in another day of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Wednesday, hump day, halfway through the week. Dylan Sinn with us as always. Kyle Neddenriep here is ready. Kyle, how you doing, brother?
Hey, good. How are you guys doing?
Cannot complain. Dylan, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. As always, Jim, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Kyle, high school football off and running, man. It's just, what week is this? Week 6, 7?
7.
7. It's crazy, but how things going along as they should be. The teams that you expect to win are winning. Any surprises so far this season? Big surprises?
I think the teams we thought would probably be on top, I would say, in the top classes, Center Grove 6A, Cathedral 5A, Roncalli 4A, they've all, I've seen all three of them now, and I think they're probably pretty clearly the favorites in all those three classes. I think there's probably some, definitely some teams that are capable of pulling an upset in all those classes, but I would be surprised if we weren't looking at all three of those on top, come Thanksgiving weekend. In the lower three classes, I think there's probably some more questions as far as who comes out of there. I got a chance to see Brebeuf on Friday against Roncalli. They were number 1 in 3A, got beaten, dropped a spot. West Lafayette's number 1 now, but I think Gibson Southern down in Southern Indiana, they're definitely legit in 3A. So I think that class will be very competitive. And then in 2A, Fort Wayne Lures and Heritage Christian and some of the normal, Eastbrook's always good. So I think that's maybe somewhat wide, even though Lures is a no doubt number 1 right now. I think there's that class will be competitive. And then, on down to 1A, it's a lot of Lutheran is a team that has knocked on the door around here several times and has not been able to win a state championship just yet. Maybe this is their year to do that. Dave Pash has been coach there for a long time, and they've got a really good group again this year. But I don't know. I think, Westfield in 6A, I think, Merrillville's interesting. There's always, the region is always kind of clamoring that they don't get the respect, and Merrillville's 6-0. So maybe they do.
Fort Wayne, don't forget about Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
Fort Wayne, Evansville, every area doesn't get the respect. It's kind of just a tongue-in-cheek joke, but you always hear every area of the state has their own opinion on that. But I think Merrillville might be, really legitimate team. It's hard to tell because they don't play some of the same opponents, so who knows? I mean, I think they are a really good team. So maybe this is their year to break through from that north side of the bracket, but we'll see. I think, Center Grove will have to go through some good teams again. Warren Central's 5-1 and has some new energy about him with Mike Kirshner there as coach. And, I think they're starting to really gain some confidence. I'm actually going to see them play Friday against Lawrence North. Haven't seen either of those teams in person yet this year. So 2 top 10 teams. Get a chance to see Omar Cooper for Lawrence North and that team. So that should be a really good game. And, so some really good sleeper teams out there, but I think those are probably the favorites are performing how we thought they would.
I'd like to pipe up in support, not in support of, but in recognition of Leo. You talked about 4A and the favorite being Roncalli, and that's true. Leo is probably pretty much the clear number 2 in my mind right now. They are 6-0. They beat East Noble. They've beaten everyone pretty handily. It's they run this offense where they pass maybe 3 or 4 times a game, and they run a whole lot of misdirection on the ground, and it's been pretty effective. They're averaging about 11 yards a carry, so it's been fun.
Yeah, it's always fun. High school football winding down, and the first non-COVID year. crowds are back. That's Friday nights are the way they should be, minus some college games. I think there's 3 college games on this Friday, which drives me nuts. The Big Ten has one of those,
including a really big one.
Maryland, Iowa.
Maryland, Iowa. A really, really big game, and they stuck it on Friday night.
It's a really big. I was like, ooh. Well, no one expected Iowa and Maryland to be a big game. Who would have expected that? But yeah. So you just mentioned the game you're going to see, Lawrence North and who?
Lawrence North and Warren Central.
Oh yeah.
So 2 really good. I mentioned Omar Cooper. He came back. He missed the first 2 games with. He was still making sure he's 100% from that knee surgery he had way back in, I guess, December. He had it after the football season. Missed all of basketball season, but he's come back and played really well. Had the game-winning touchdown catch last week against Ben Davis with 5 seconds left in that game. And that's a program that's really, turned around here the last couple of years. And this would be, if they can win, they're 4-1 now, knocking on the door of another winning season. This would be the first time in, 15 years they've had back-to-back winning seasons. So that's hard to do in the MIC when you're facing, Center Grove, Ben Davis, Warren, those schools that are Carmel continuously, at the top of the best teams in the state. So that's not easy for Lawrence North, which shares its district. It's not a huge school really, because Lawrence Central and them share kids in that Lawrence Township. So pretty good turnaround story, and they'll face a really good. Warren Central's got a really good receiver too, Joe Walker, who has some offers, including IU. So he's a junior. He's kind of the next star receiver. He looks the part. He's playing the part, and looking forward to seeing him in person. But he's, Omar Cooper, is, all these receivers are kind of their own style a little bit, and Walker's got some of that, kind of swagger that good receivers have to him, and it'll be fun to see what he does on Friday too. But 2 of the best going against each other on Friday night, so that should be fun.
Yeah, Omar Cooper is the receiving core is not an area that I thought Indiana would be weak at this year, but they're definitely thinned out with the loss of DJ Matthews. They wish they could have him right now, I think. And Ty Freifogel has not had the season that was expected of him. So Omar Cooper, someone like that, they can't wait to get him into the camp, I'm sure.
Yeah, and he's like I said, he's not going to get there early. He's planning on playing basketball going through the season, and he's not going to be a January enrollee, at least last I talked to him. So but he'll be, I think Tom Allen likes that. He's a multi-sport guy. He's a very tough competitor on the basketball court too. And Warren Central fans got mad at me. I compared him to David Bell that way because Bell was the same way. He loved basketball, defensive-minded basketball player. And I wrote a story about a year ago about Omar and kind of comparing him to David Bell. And I believe they are similar that way. But Warren Central fans are a little touchy when you compare David Bell to anybody. So I get it. I love David Bell too. But yeah, so that was kind of funny to get that response from them.
Yeah, not surprising though. And David Bell is going to be another one in the NFL, I would imagine, joining Rondale Moore, who's already there. But it's a great compliment, and he is. He is a talent and one that they can't wait to get to Bloomington. I'm sure he's looking forward to that. Caden Curry, another guy whose name, obviously, big name. His recruiting continues to go. His season's going well though, and any updates on anything he's talked about or heard anything about his recruiting?
No, that's last I knew and last I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, he's still planning on taking some visits, and I know he's taken IU and Ohio State, and is kind of waiting to take these other visits to these other schools. I don't know that's we talked earlier in the season about him possibly committing towards the end of the regular season, so I need to ask him again what he's thinking on that. But I think we talked last week about Ohio State and how they're going to be difficult to knock off because it seems like when the top Indiana guys get those offers from Ohio State normally wins those recruiting battles. And you're in the Midwest, you're in Big Ten country, and Big Ten resonates, I think, even more than, and even in Alabama or a Clemson or, Oregon, some of these other schools he's considering just because of proximity, and you kind of grow up knowing what you know, and that's, Big Ten football for a large part. So, recruiting has changed. It's less regional than it used to be. I think probably because of the prevalent television, where you can watch any game anywhere. So that's changed a little bit, but I think the proximity to home still matters to a lot of kids. And, I think it'll be tough to beat Ohio State, but, we'll see what happens with him. He's clearly one of the most sought after defensive linemen in the country.
Yeah, I mean, a big one. And kids are getting smarter and smarter and taking their time and making the trips, all that. Some back in the day, you could get some kids just wouldn't wait. And it's the smart ones that are doing what he's doing and going through the entire process.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's sometimes you have to commit, and coaches will, especially in football, in basketball too, they'll say, hey, we may not have this spot available, do you want to take it? It may not be here. The scholarship offers, even if you read the offers on the miscellaneous websites 24/7 and stuff like that, some of those offers aren't committable, meaning, they may have had an offer that's no longer standing anymore because their position, they only had maybe they had 4 offers out to 2, linebackers, and those 2 took it, and now they don't have a available spot or whatever the case may be. So, sometimes that, the kids have to jump on it. I know, it's sometimes people are critical of the early commitments, and I've talked to parents who are, who say, hey, it's if we had to do it over again, we probably wouldn't have committed early, but you kind of want to lock your spot in, and then, in football, you kind of lock your spot in, then you look elsewhere, and you keep getting recruited. Football is a little different. Basketball is not necessarily that way, but football is. And, we had a kid here, Cale Vanderbush, who was committed to Western Michigan, from Plainfield, just committed to Iowa, and he was still committed to, Western Michigan at the time, but, Big Ten offer comes in, and, what are you going to do? I mean, so, it happens that way. Caden Curry's different, because, the David Bells and the Caden Currys and the Omar Coopers are probably a little different in that, those offers are probably going to be there regardless of how many kids commit. So, that's Caden Curry's in an advantageous position that way because he has, he's enough of a get to where, coaches are going to leave a spot open for him if he wants to take it. So it's a little bit easier for him to wait than it might be somebody else who's maybe a 2-star or 3-star, and you gotta kind of get your spot locked in. If you really want it, then you probably need to jump on it.
Yeah, he's one that I don't think that anyone is going to be pulling scholarships or closing any holes for him. He's going to be fine. I think he knows that. And I wonder how the impact of what Indiana season that they're having right now is going to have on that. The kids at Wade, they get to see that stuff play out, and you really wonder if that's going to play into that sometimes. Because I've talked to so many different people, and they have different takes on that. It's sometimes they say, "Oh no, it doesn't matter." They think that they're the guy, but football is a different sport. It's so much bigger that I think that definitely plays into that, and I think that the IU season will be critical in his recruiting.
Yeah, it's always hard to tell. I agree. It's sort of it's one of those things where I don't think it's everything, the game to game, the wins and losses every week. I'm not sure how much impact that necessarily has. But the momentum of the program, I think, is something that, from a big picture perspective, is something that, I think it does matter. Who else are you bringing in? What's your overall, are you moving forward? Are you moving backward? Is there discussions behind the scenes about a coach, possibly being on the hot seat? How long will that coach be? Those sorts of things I think do matter. I don't know that the week to week, like if you lose on a last second play or win on a last second play, I'm not sure that matters quite as much. I don't know that your overall record is going to, make all the difference on which way a kid goes. A lot of these players see themselves as like, well, I'll be the difference. I'm going to go in and make the change. I see an opportunity to play right away too. That often plays a role too. So, I don't think necessarily if you go, 5-7 or 7-5, it's going to matter make all the difference. But, there is something to momentum of a program, coaching stability, and then your opportunity to play and make a difference right away. I think all those things kind of factor into it. So, yeah, I would agree the momentum matters. I don't know that the overall record necessarily is going to sway him one way or another.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to that. What else you got going on that the people need to see? I know you're traveling Friday night to that game, but what's coming up? You've always got tons of great reads out there on the Indy Star.
Yeah, starting to dip into some basketball. So I got a couple stories coming up on Tech basketball. They're kind of reloading with some new players. Have that in the next couple of days. Solomon Williams, have a feature on him coming up from Carmel. His dad is coach for the Colts, assistant coach. His brother's a baseball player at Michigan State. Just kind of writing about Solomon and his kind of journey, and his very kid who really has kind of dived into his faith. And I think that's interesting for a kid that age. And so I just have a little feature on him coming up too. But yeah, a lot of football, a lot of basketball coming up. Been out of some open gyms here the last couple of weeks and getting us some more this week. So, kind of the crossover of basketball and football has arrived. So that's always fun.
Looking forward to it, man, and looking forward to always having you on. I appreciate you greatly.
You bet. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Dylan.
Thanks, Kyle.
Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star. Make sure you give him a follow. Brought to you by the great folks at Southern Stone Restaurant. Man, it's a great place to get out and have something to eat. I could eat right now. Looking forward to it. It's also where you're going to find the coaches shows for IU as well. So get out, whether it's a celebration or just a relaxing night away from the kitchen, try something fresh and new. Southern Stone Restaurant, located at the corner of Rogers and Patterson in Bloomington. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Hey, Hoosier fans. Man, I'm going to be so off on time now. So
think of it just as 20 minutes difference. So every segment's about 20 minutes. Like right now it's 9:40.
Right.
Just think of it as behind by one segment.
I didn't realize that the coaching shows weren't at Yogi's anymore.
They never were at Yogi's. They were
where were they?
They were at some Holiday Inn.
Oh, okay.
But it's the first time it's moved in like 10 years. And this is just temporary. This restaurant, he's opening up another restaurant.
Okay.
It's the old Colorado Steakhouse, which is out on North Walnut.
Oh, I see.
So just to update, so Kravitz, I think I tried telling you earlier, but maybe I didn't. Kravitz came on, but he obviously couldn't stay as long as he could.
He had to take his car in.
Yeah. So we'll have to get him next time.
Someone sabotaged his car while he was in Bloomington for the Cincinnati game.
Is that what happened?
That's what he said. I was like, what the hell?
Hey, Tim, Jim, why does Tim keep calling me Blippy? You sent me that book with Blippy last night.
I have nothing to do with it, man.
So did he send that to you?
Yeah.
Okay. He said he was watching that show with his granddaughter in the chat, and apparently I look like that fool. And I don't take that as a compliment whatsoever. But hey, it is what it is. Everybody's got their own opinions. Maybe I should dress like him. Get a big old orange suit, little bow tie. Hey, I'll just change my name to Blippy the producer.
There you go.
It's definitely a catchy name to say. I will say that.
Blippy.
But it almost sounds like an insult, though, because when you think of a blip, you think of like a blip, like a glitch in the system, like it's a mess up. So, hey, we got 30 seconds, Jim.
Oh, man.
Wherever you're at, probably getting some bacon or something.
Home. And I know you'll continue to be there for whatever my future holds. Because you're my BFF, banking friends forever.
Right now, get free checking with online banking and all the products of big city banks with hometown service.
With First Federal, you can do that.
This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It is Hump Day. Dylan Sinn with me from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. How's your week been, Dylan?
It's been good. I've been all over the place. I went to Bloomington on Monday. I saw you there. I went to West Lafayette on Tuesday for Purdue's first practice. We got to see a lot of Purdue's practice, actually, which was a lot of fun. So, it's kind of been a basketball-heavy week so far, but I'll be getting into football starting today, mostly doing previews of Purdue, IU, and Notre Dame.
Yeah, Monday was a very, very busy day for everybody. Started out with the show, had to be at the football complex, then we had football pressers, then we had IU basketball media day, then we did the Monday evening quarterback show at 6. That was a pretty long day.
It was, yeah.
Rough way to start the week.
You got to see Mike Woodson talk about hanging banners, though. That was fun.
It was actually good to see all of it, but he's already making everything so much more relaxed in that program. That program is a relaxed program right now, and it is going to make a huge difference. I think you can't play scared. You can't play a lot of different things. And I think that was part of the problem they had the last few years. And now you've got a player's coach that has been there, done that, got the T-shirt and the banner. So I just think it's a whole new feeling for all of them. I think it's a resurgence, whether it's Trace Jackson Davis or Race Thompson or Christian Lander, who you can see physical growth in Christian. Having been a long time since we've actually seen them up close, yeah. I can see the physical growth in Christian.
Yeah, he looks a little bit bigger. He's physically just seems a little bit stronger, and that's good for him. That's definitely going to help, because that was the big knock on him coming out of high school and the reason why people wondered whether reclassifying was the right decision, because he was small. He's a small kid, and he was going to need some time to bulk up for the physicality of Big Ten basketball. And we saw that last year. He's obviously a talented player. It's just a question of, can he handle the rigors of that conference? And I think after an off season of work, it'll be much easier for him, but he is going to have to battle for playing time with Xavier Johnson and Rob Finney, both of whom IU clearly values and thinks that they have a space in that rotation. And that's kind of been the interesting part of this. We talked to Woodson a little bit about this on Monday, but it really does seem like they have 10, 11, 12 guys that could conceivably see the floor. Now, whether you don't play 12 guys in college basketball, it's nonsensical. You don't do it. But Woodson said he wants to have 10. He wants to have 10 guys that he feels can play at any given moment so he can mix and match rotations. And that's not something IU's had in recent years. Last year, they had, eight guys?
They didn't even have 8.
Yeah. So that it's just going to be a much deeper team this year. Now, whether that translates to, because whether the 5 that see the most minutes are better, that's an open question, right? But that's going to give the starters at least a little bit of rope. It's going to give them at least a little bit of time to rest. And I think that should help late in games, because there were so many games last year, especially at the end of the season, where IU was in the game the entire time and they just wore down at the end. It was pretty obvious. Like the game that I always go back to was the Michigan State game up in East Lansing, where IU needed to win. One of those teams was going to have their tournament hopes dashed completely, and IU led for most of the second half, and then they just went completely asleep in the last 4 minutes of that game. and missed several 3-pointers by 5 feet. And they're a tired team. And I think I would expect that is going to happen less often this year. That would be my expectation based on roster moves that are made in the offseason.
I would expect that to not happen, period. Because coming from the NBA, that's one of the things that Mike Woodson knows is you got to be in shape. And if he's wanting to have 10 guys, that's probably because they're going to be staying active, busy, moving, a lot of movement, wearing the other team out. If you've got 10 guys, man, that's some options. You can keep the pressure on the opposition. So, but yeah, and he is recruiting that way. He's recruiting exactly that way. For every position, he wants 2 players, which is good for the players, because if you're the 8th guy, 9th guy, usually like, yeah, I'm not going to get any minutes. That guy's probably going to get the 8th or 9th guy for Indiana is probably going to be getting quite a few more minutes than any 9th or other person on a roster.
Yeah, that would be my expectation as well, especially early in the season. Because again, these are all guys. A lot of the guys on this team, even the guys who are going to end up 8th or 9th in the rotation, have played big minutes before, right? Like there's a possibility that Jordan Geronimo is the 8th or 9th guy. Jordan Geronimo played a lot of minutes last year. And so at the beginning of the season, they're going to have to figure out, and I think that Bahamas really helped with this. I would expect that Mike Woodson and Dane Fife and even Thad Matta kind of have a better idea of what they have now, right? And I think that was why, in addition to the Bahamas being a way for everyone to kind of bond and get to know each other, I think it was a way for the coaches to get to know what they have on the roster, because so many of these guys are new. And so but I still expect that at the start of the season, we'll see some tinkering. I don't think the starting lineup and the rotation in the first game is going to be what it's going to be in March, especially with so many young players on this team. So I would expect some tinkering, especially at the start of the season.
Yep, looking forward to it. And getting to talk to the players face-to-face in person for the first time in 2 years was also different. But you could see they all seem refreshed. Trace Jackson Davis, of course, I guess you call the leader of the team. But even he seems refreshed. He has a new attitude. You can see a new attitude. I think a positive attitude, an attitude of not hope, but expectations. Michael Durr's they got big guys, man. Last year they had Race and Trace, and that was it. Now you've got Trace, Race, Michael Durr, Logan Duncombe. You got 4 guys. You've doubled your big man. You've doubled what you have, and that's part of having 2 open scholarships, which I'm not going to talk about the idiocy of that again. But when you have 2 open scholarships, there's no way you don't have issues. You only have freaking 13 damn players. I mean, that's a huge loss, especially when you're so thin at so many different places. Didn't have shooters, didn't have big men, but yet you got 2 open scholarships. That was part of that problem. But that made it so much more difficult on the guys that were there, because like you said, it was an 8-man rotation, but it was forced to be 8 because the 8th was just what they had to come in. It was almost the starting 5. It was basically them. Yeah. And now you've doubled that ability, I think.
And that's why it really hurt so much, especially in the middle of the year when Armon Franklin went down last year. He was having such a great season. He goes down, then you're even thinner than you were before. And I think so. Not only are you losing your best playmaker, which he was last season, I thought, outside of Trace, obviously, but you're losing a really key piece of your rotation and a place that you can't afford to lose anyone. And I think this year they have backup plans, right? If a guy gets injured, I think they'll be able to weather an injury this season. Now, if it's to Trace, maybe not, right? He's still going to be the focal point of this team, but at least you have someone out there that kind of is a known commodity, right? You're not throwing out a freshman or something like that. And so I do wonder if that they might be able to weather an injury a little bit better this year as well.
Yeah, let's hope so. I would absolutely think that they will be. And actually, that is something that I hadn't thought of either. But you got me when you mentioned Armon Franklin. I'm still shocked that he actually ended up transferring with Mike Woodson coming in, with all that was coming in. I don't know what he gained by transferring to Virginia. I don't know. He has his reasons, and that's fine. But I'm just surprised. Unless he thought there was just the first year they weren't going to have any success because it's the first year and this and that. But that one just really surprised me.
Maybe he really enjoyed playing the pack line defense that much. And he wanted to continue playing it. I guess. That was the one that surprised me too, because I remember Race and Armon were the last two that decided. And if you had asked me before they made their decisions, I would have expected it to go the other way. I would have expected Race to leave and Armon to stay, because just the way their style of play worked. And I was surprised that Race stayed. I'm glad he did, because I think it's good for IU that he did, because I think he provides a lot, especially at rebounding and toughness. But Armon, I think, is a better fit for this team. And so it was disappointing to lose him because he was their best backcourt playmaker last year. It does help they're bringing in Parker Stewart. He should help cushion that blow. Xavier Johnson should cushion that blow somewhat. And then Miller Kopp should help replace some of the three-point shooting they lost. The problem is, as I see it now, is that Miller Kopp is still the only one in this team that can shoot a three. Woodson has talked about it all offseason, how much they want to shoot threes and how much better they want to be. I don't see anyone on the roster that's a consistent three-point shooter outside of Miller Kopp.
Parker Stewart, maybe? I haven't seen it.
We haven't seen it yet. That's the thing. Is Trace has said that Parker Stewart is a terrific shooter. Woodson has said Parker Stewart has been great in practice shooting. We didn't see it in the Bahamas. That's the worry for IU, is that Miller Kopp ends up being the only one. Now, you expect Parker Stewart to figure it out, but Miller Kopp is the only one we've seen it in a game situation.
Well, and speaking of Parker Stewart, in the press conference, he's a very mild, very, very, very mild-mannered kid. I mean, he just seems like he's almost shy, really shy. You wonder how that's going to come out onto the court and Assembly Hall in front of 17,000 people. I mean, he seems really shy.
Yeah. And I mean, he averaged almost 20 points a game when he was at Tennessee Martin, but this isn't Tennessee Martin, right? He's playing against much better teams on a nightly basis. Now, to be clear, from everything we've heard about him, he seems like he's been very, very good in practice. I mean, Trace and Race especially have talked about him as at times being their best player in off-season workouts. And I think that says something. It says something that he started in the Bahamas, that Mike Woodson thinks that of him. But yeah, can you do it under the bright lights? And we have no reason to believe that there's any kind of shyness to his game, right? But yeah, it's definitely going to be a transition for him, and you wonder, maybe that season off helped him get adjusted to IU. But the problem is that he didn't get to see those crowds at all, because there were no crowds last season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. But you also, now you've gotten opportunities for guys. There's an opportunity right there. Who can step up and be that guy? Because that will get you more minutes, and get on the floor a lot. And I don't know who that guy's going to be, mainly because we just haven't seen it. We've not seen anything, and it's early. It doesn't. Things could change through the first 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. That's what those games are for in basketball. But the shooting is something that they absolutely have to be successful. But I don't think it's definitely not going to be nearly as the issue that it was previously, because they have so many more options to attack people with. And by many options, I mean different ways and personnel. So it's going to be interesting to see what can they do against teams like Michigan and Purdue, who are established Big Ten teams, I guess you'd say. They've got the guys together. Their teams have been together for the most part. The coaching staff has been with them, so they all have a head start a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what Indiana can do there. A lot of prognostications have put them at like 7th, and that was the same last year, and they weren't wrong.
They were actually too high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that this year we don't know about the Big Ten yet. I keep saying that. I don't know, because you look at the football season. Thought everything was about Indiana football was based on what we thought this offense was going to be like. And the offense has not produced, and the team has taken a major hit because of that. On the basketball side, I don't know who's going to be the producer, who's going to be the guy. Do they have that guy that can step up? You have Trace Jackson Davis that's going to fill his role where we know that the guys that we've seen before, that they're going to do what they need to do and better. They'll do it better under Mike Woodson. It's the new faces that we just don't know, like Parker Stewart. Just big question. Can he actually hit the 3? Because they need someone besides Miller Kopp, because he's not playing 40 minutes a game. And even when he's in the game, if he's the only shooter, they're going to put the defense on him.
Yeah. Yeah, I do wonder whether that's how Anthony Leal gets on the court, because I wondered whether Anthony Leal might be kind of the odd man out this year. Him and Duncan might be kind of the ones that aren't on the court quite as much. But if he can prove that he can shoot on a consistent basis the way maybe he did against Wisconsin last year when he had that great game where they almost won in the Kohl Center, I do think that's going to be the thing that gets him on the court if he ends up on the court.
Yeah, I agree with you. And they need that. And then you've got Xavier Johnson, other faces that are new and that we, other than the reports from the Bahamas, we know this is maybe a team we know the least about, an IU basketball team, the least that I can remember in a long, long, long time, if not ever.
Probably since 2008, right? That would be the only thing that's even comparable to it, and that's obviously a completely different situation because they had only 2 scholarship guys and everything else was filled in. But yeah, it is a almost entirely unknown, because not only do you not know about the new players, you don't know how the old players who have been here are going to fit in with the new guys at all, and how the new system is going to work. So there are entirely unknowns on this team. It's going to be a lot of fun and it's going to be interesting.
Tony said that, I think he's meaning Xavier started many games as a freshman in the ACC at Pitt and averaged 9 points.
No, Parker was at Pitt before he was at Tennessee Martin.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Was he teammates with Xavier Johnson?
I don't believe so. I don't think they overlapped. I can check that for you.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Now, because he played for his father at Middle Tennessee,
Right.
Tennessee Martin, so I assumed that he just went there straight out.
No, he went to Pitt first.
We'll have to look that up, man. That's a great little tidbit to pull up. We'll do that in the break. We got more coming here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette was with me now. Rick Bozich coming up. Back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant. Whether you're looking for...
I did not know that.
He was at Pitt for 1 season. He did not overlap with Xavier Johnson. The thing is, he was at Pitt for 1 year. That was 2017-18. So it's been a while because he sat out all of 18-19 for the transfer, played 19-20 at UT Martin, and then sat out 2021. So he's alternated seasons on and off the last 4 years.
We're talking about Parker Stewart. Rick, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good.
Yeah, Parker Stewart was, I think, maybe the first year of Kevin Stallings, and then Xavier Johnson was the second year.
Parker Stewart shot 39% from 3 at Pitt, only 35% at UT Martin, presumably because he had the ball in his hand so much more often.
As you say, put a lot more shots up.
Took twice the number of shots almost.
Yeah, he was playing for his dad, so he had ultimate green light.
Yeah.
I only watched part of that thing on Monday. Does he just have a different way of speaking?
I was just talking about that. I was trying to find a way to describe it.
My guess is that he went through media training and they told them to choose their words carefully. And so he was really trying to think of what he wanted to say before he said. That would be my guess.
Well, he seemed, I called it shy, and coming off of, and then you look back at the fact that we wondered why he didn't play last year. And I don't know. But it did. I was sitting here thinking the same thing. I'm like, it was a long pause.
Yeah. To the point where they were actually like moving on to the next question. Even he fooled JD, even, who called the next person before he was done. So, yeah.
Probably a little bit different than UT Martin.
Yeah, it is. But that's the thing is his teammates need to have confidence in him. We hadn't heard anything about him being shy or his teammates trying to get him out of his shell or anything like that. I think that was just for our benefit. Or maybe he just hadn't done media in quite a while. So I don't think there was a whole lot of media covering UT Martin.
He's real soft-spoken too, though. So, yeah.
Well, the IU point spread's gone from 10 to 12.5, huh?
Yeah.
This week?
Yeah.
That's a big jump in football.
Yes, it is.
Holy crap, that's a big jump.
I wonder if that came after the announcement of DJ Matthews' ACL.
That'd be my guess.
All right, here we go. Coming back.
Be more Hotness, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It is Wednesday. Dylan Sinn with me from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, as always, and Hall of Fame writer Rick Bozich joining us from WDRB.com. How's it going, Rick?
Going good. Beautiful Wednesday morning. Just went out and got my walk in and can't complain about days like this because they won't last many more weeks.
Mr. Chicago White Sox. Saw they were playing the Reds last night.
Did they play last night?
Dang it. I was like, damn it. I said, Bozich's going to be on tomorrow. I was like, come on, Reds. I got their ass beat again.
Officially eliminated last night, right? The Cardinals won their 47th in a row.
Yeah, 17 in a row. Can you believe that? I mean, this is I didn't think that after you watch Moneyball and the Athletics back when they did that, I didn't think that was ever possible again. I mean, that's in baseball, that's a long.
Well, especially at the end of the year when the games for the Cardinals were so meaningful because they weren't going to be in the playoffs until they got hot like this.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is the latest streak of that nature when it's coming, because it's coming at playoff time.
I think it has to be. There's a chance they end the season on a 21-game winning streak. Like it'd be absurd.
Yeah, and then lose the 1-game playoff and they're done.
Yeah.
Now
probably the Dodgers, I guess.
Oakland
the
got
Giants won
eliminated
again last night.
Yeah, they will have to face Scherzer in Game 1. All right,
Monday was Indiana Basketball Media Day. Rick, what was your take from there? The first time we've gotten to not speak to Mike Woodson. He spoke with us before. First time we got to be there live, which was awesome,
right,
and see the players and get kind of that read on them and you can see growth and see who's physically different and all those kinds of things. But what were some of your takes?
I wasn't there. I watched it on Facebook or the IU stream or whatever it was. I guess my primary take was, and it might be what I was looking for, is just that a lot of guys seem to be happier, feel like they're going to be able to be less restrained or have a little bit less looking over their shoulder as they're playing. It wasn't a direct criticism of the previous coaching staff, but reading between the lines. But the only caution I would throw in there, I think you hear that pretty much everywhere where there's a coaching change, that, this coaching staff is more modern. We're going to play faster paced. We're going to shoot more threes. You never hear players say, well, we're going to slow down this year. We're really going to milk the clock. Or we're going to make sure we throw 4 passes before every shot. They don't say that. They always say they're going to be, more freewheeling, and coach has confidence that can make those shots until guys actually get in games and A, start missing shots, as a lot of Indiana players have over the last few years, or B, turning it over as they have over the last few years. So to me, pretty much what I expected.
Yeah, they definitely seem to be a group, as we talked earlier, that it's just a lighter. The audience, it's a lighter room, and speaking of JD, that's my barometer. He has been cracking jokes, so am I going, dude? His life has gotten so much easier than it has been for the last, not just 4 years, for the last 12, 13 years, probably
13. Well, 14 probably, because he was there for the year of the turmoil.
Yeah.
I think actually what they're saying might have more validity this time, because we know just from watching last year and watching the media interactions, watching the body language on the bench, that it didn't seem like to be a group that was having a lot of fun or enjoyed playing for the coach. And the coach gave off negative vibes and negative body language with his facial expressions and the way he did things. I mean, do you ever remember him cracking a joke or laughing, or except for the Oscar the Grouch thing during his rant at Joe Lunardi? That was pretty much it. And Woodson seems like a guy who, they've released that video this week where he was doing the touchdown spike in the end zone. I mean, you can't imagine the previous coaching staff doing that. I mean, no, we'll be more relaxed, but I mean, hopefully that's the case for them.
And that's got to, I know it will play into their play. I mean, when you're
more excited to go to practice. I mean, that team gave the impression last year over the last 5 or 6 weeks, like, oh, we got to go back and do this again, or, oh, we got to do this media availability for 3 minutes. I mean, I jokingly said for a while they started looking like POW videos. We don't want to be here. We're doing it. Get us out of here. Right?
And not only that,
it wasn't very much fun.
No, it wasn't for anyone. I can't imagine what it was like for the players. But and also we talked earlier about, Dylan and I, the scope of the depth that they have now. They had no depth last year. You had 2 empty scholarships. Right. They've doubled they've got 4 big men now, which means they've doubled that. Just everything is bigger, better, and it just like it was an empty cupboard of sorts. Not empty because you've had some good players, but it was like you needed to go to the store a week or 2 late.
Yeah, I mean, they had definite holes in the roster, and the pieces didn't really fit together that well, totally. And as much as they talked about, being more modern and doing more spacing, that didn't really happen when Race and Trace were on the floor.
Tempo, remember all the tempo every year?
Right, and we'll see how Woodson works that out, because, they're still the same guys. I'm sure they've improved their skill sets, but they still aren't the greatest shooters. So how's he going to finesse that part of it, where he's going to get one of those guys to play more away from the basket? To me, the number one question, though, is going to be, do they actually have some dudes at guard who can score when they need baskets, and B, defend? Indiana really hasn't had a guy, I think, that Big Ten teams feared at guard since Yogi Ferrell. Maybe Robert Johnson when he was playing his best, but he could be kind of inconsistent. But no knock against, Durham and Franklin and some of those Josh Newkirk and some of the other guys they've had there. But I mean, those aren't top of the line Big Ten guards. And I know that Indiana has volume at guards. They have 6 or 7 guards, but do they actually have, are 1 or 2, at least one of those guys is a guy who can be an elite guard in the Big Ten? Because I think that's what you have. The good teams have that.
Absolutely. Dylan?
Like they had, I mean, the closest thing they've had is Devontae Green on some of those nights that when he's really good, but that was once in a blue moon, right? And so they seem to believe that Xavier Johnson is that guy. Now the problem is that he isn't a great shooter. He shot 32% from 3 at Pitt but he does seem to be the kind of playmaker that you need in the Big Ten or anywhere really, that it can be just a facilitator that's going to get guys the ball where they can make things happen. And I think that's going to help them significantly.
Yeah, I agree. I think he looks like a guy who can break down the defense and force somebody to switch on him, and then it's a matter of whether he can execute the play to get the ball to the open man. He did have good. I think he was near the top in the ACC in assists, wasn't he, last year? I think he was.
He was, yeah.
The thing that makes you stop when you read his stat line is he was also pretty high in turnovers.
Basically, he was the entire offense at Pitt. He had the ball in his hand. His usage rate was. And
he's a competitive dude. I saw him play.
Yeah.
He played Louisville. He's a competitor, and he's saying all the right things. I mean, I've seen several things where he said, the reason he came to Indy, left Pitt and came to Indiana was because he wanted to win, not because he was looking for more shots or not because he was looking to get to the league. He said repeatedly he wants to win, and that's a good thing for a transfer to say.
Pretty striking indictment of Pitt's program, the way they've gone in the last couple of years as well.
Yeah, I mean, they got guys all over the place. I mean, I think isn't Nebraska's senior guard a former Pitt transfer, McGowan's?
I think he is, yeah.
Yeah, and they had Cameron Johnson leave there, who went to Carolina, was a really good player. I mean, Stallings had some good players. He just couldn't keep them there. And now even a few guys that have left Capel. I don't know. I'm not sure if Xavier Johnson was a Stallings or a Capel recruit.
I think he was early Capel or maybe
early
late
Capel.
Stallings. He came in 2018. He was
and wasn't Pitt also the place that Hood Schifino initially committed before he decommitted?
Yes, he did. Yeah, that's the other part of this is that IU is poaching from Pitt recently here. But yeah, that's interesting as well.
One of the other things we talked about, you're talking about guards, is I'm still surprised that Armon Franklin transferred out after Mike Woodson was. I was like, man, that would have seemed to me a great place for him to fit in, and I'm still surprised because he would have been the guy. I would think at guard, he would be the first option that Mike Woodson would be looking at, and but he didn't. He wanted to stay, I guess, with the same style, like Dylan said. But that surprised me.
Yeah, I agree. It's surprising. I don't know. I guess Tony Bennett can be quite persuasive when you're talking about a coach who's got a national championship, who's frequently been a 1 or 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. And if you've ever been to Virginia and seen the campus and the facilities and stuff, it's pretty nice. So, and it's a great education. So that part of it makes sense. But for an Indiana kid to leave and to go there was a little bit surprising.
Yeah, and then something else that came up that the scrimmages. They've got 2 scrimmages, but one was a team down in Louisville, was how Mike Woodson said. And the first thing that comes to my mind is Bellarmine, since they just recently went up to Division I. And I know I saw Scotty out at a lot of the deals over the summer where the IU staff was. So I know there was a lot of crossover there. It's not Louisville, so I'm an A team unless it's somebody else is coming in and they're meeting halfway or something.
So that's what he said. The game's going to be in Louisville.
Yeah, I think the exact quote was a team down in Louisville.
Huh. I'll have to make a call on that. Thanks for the heads up. I didn't hear that part of it. I guess I must have been in the other room. Something is it Ohio State's one of them? No, Cincinnati's one of them, right?
Cincinnati is one of them. He did say that.
Where's that one going to be, in Bloomington?
Didn't say on that one. I don't think.
Are they the secret scrimmages?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is he didn't say exactly where that was going to be, but he did say Cincinnati and a team in Louisville.
So you don't think it's Bellarmine?
I think it is.
Oh, okay.
Since he said a team down in Louisville and didn't name Louisville, and he named Cincinnati, maybe he's thinking a lot of people haven't heard of Bellarmine or something, and that's why he didn't use the name. Because they're recently just moved up to Division I, although they were Division II national champions and a really, really good program. But I can't, unless again somebody's coming from someplace else.
Yeah, because they've done that in the past. Didn't they play Marquette and somebody else up in Indianapolis one year before the season?
Well, they played the Loyola Chicago.
Loyola Chicago. That's what it was. I thought they played Marquette one year too, or somebody like that. No, they played Marquette there was another one they played in Indianapolis. Can't remember the team.
Yeah.
They
It's
played
a
Marquette.
guessing game right now.
They did play Marquette in one of those secret scrimmages. I remember.
Okay, that's what I thought it was.
West Virginia too, I think, at some point.
Well, I got to write that on my list to find out who they're playing here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And where? I mean, I assume that game has to be at the Yum Center down in Louisville when it takes place because, well, other than Freedom Hall, there's not and at Bellarmine, there's not all other places they could.
Yeah, I don't think they can play in Bellarmine. I mean, they could, but I would think you'd want to go play Bellarmine in their gym.
I wouldn't think that they'd do that either. But why would they rent out the Yum Center to play Bellarmine? Because it's not been announced that that's who it is. We're guessing here right now, but
I guess to simulate a road game environment, how they're going to do things when they go on the road.
Is it possible that it's Louisville?
Sure, it's possible. I mean, Louisville played Ohio State here 2 or 3 years ago. They had a scrimmage against Ohio State.
Be interesting since they just lost the commit Caleb Glenn to Louisville. That can't be shocking. I've told people you cannot be shocked by a kid from Louisville going to Louisville. But I was thinking that he was getting away from Louisville with what they had going on with the Gaudio stuff and all that, and he had spent a lot of time in Indiana, but apparently it didn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, he went to Louisville Male. That's a very strong University of Louisville connection. That's Daryl Griffith, Henry Bacon, Jason Osborne, Michael Bush, Chris Redmond. That's a pretty strong pull. That's, from Male High School to U of L's 2 miles at the most. And his dad played football at U of L under John L. Smith. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a former U of L football player. So there's a lot of other connections there. So the surprising thing about Glenn is that, he's a 23 guy. And for him, he's committing, 14 months before he can sign, which is interesting. Maybe he's making a strong consideration of reclassifying because he certainly has the body to reclassify if you've seen the video of him.
Yeah, that's a good point because in this day and age of NIL, that could be another impetus. Being a kid from Louisville to play at Louisville would probably give him more options, NIL options than the average kid.
For sure. Yeah.
Speaking of that, then how much has I think we're going to see more and more of that with the NIL, guys reclassifying for that reason. And basketball is a lot easier to do it than football is, obviously.
Yeah, I agree. We've already seen a few, right?
Yeah. Christian being one of them, right? And yeah.
Well, he didn't do it for that reason, but.
Right.
But Memphis got 2 big studs there right at the deadline because of it. Jalen Duran and Monty Bates.
Hey, something else that I noticed. Well, someone pointed out. I think it was Kevin Brockway pointed out to me, but Logan Duncombe is mulletless. I'm like, man, you can't sell mullet T-shirts without the mullet.
Maybe he got tired of taking grief. I'll tell you that the one guy that I am very interested in seeing is Michael Durr, because he's not talked about much. He's like one of the last guys they added. He didn't play in the Bahamas. His numbers at South Florida, they got some interesting tidbits to him where he's a pretty good shooter. He's a real good free throw shooter, but he's a big body dude. And for the Big Ten, I could see him being a valuable player. Against Purdue, like when they got all the big guys, Zach Edey and Travion Williams, and then first, I mean, you might need another big body to go in there if either Johnson or Race Thompson gets in foul trouble.
Yeah, he's someone that I was looking at too when they were walking out. It's a good thing when you're there, like I said, in person, you get a good look at him, and he's a big boy. I still think that Trace and Race are the 2 strongest guys on this team. I mean, they are continuing to get bigger and stronger, but Durr is a big, solid body, and I don't know how well he plays on the floor. I haven't watched him play yet, but absolutely having that third, and then with Logan Duncombe, which he's not going to probably add a lot right now as a freshman, but having a third and a fourth option as a big man, Indiana has doubled their opportunities there. Because when they had Race and Trace on the floor at the same time last year, that there's nothing on the bench.
It's going to be very fascinating to see who the 8 to 9 to 10 players are who actually play. Because I think it's hard. You can go 10. I think that's hard to do. 8 or 9 is usually what most coaches like, but you can't go 13 once you get into really tough competition. And who are going to be the guys who do play and who are going to be the guys who don't play? Because there's going to be a few.
Always is. Rick, what do you got coming up on WDRB.com?
Saturday night, going to Lexington. Battle of 2 top 25 teams. Florida, number 10 maybe? 8 or 10? They're in the top 10. And Kentucky's near the bottom there of the top 25, and they're 4-0. Going to be a sold-out crowd. They've only beaten Florida, I think, once in the last 30-some years, but they've played them close most other times. And I think that Kentucky's made some good moves in the transfer portal. They really upgraded their team at quarterback. Wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson from Nebraska is terrific. They got an offensive lineman from LSU and a linebacker from Ole Miss. So they hit pretty much went 4 for 4 in the transfer portal, and this is their chance. Florida, though, is really good. Their only loss was to Alabama by 2 points, and they're leading the SEC in rushing, and they're like 3rd in the country. They got a really strong ground game. So
Indiana going on the road to take on a Penn State team. You mentioned that the spread had went from 10 to 12.5, which that's pretty big in college football numbers. If you're a bettor, you know that when that number moves that much, there's a lot of money being bet on Penn
with
State.
Confidence. With confidence. Tough thing. I mean, Indiana's this is their 5th week in a row playing, and just came off a road game.
And playing a ranked team 3rd time out of 5.
Yeah. And they come off a road game playing against a team with a totally different style. A night game at Penn State, got to be one of the top 10 most difficult atmospheres in college football, right?
No.
And I'm sure that Penn State fans and probably some of the players are tired of hearing about Michael Penix and the dive into the end zone. So this could be 3.5 hours of payback.
Man, I look forward to seeing you again, and I can't wait. Congratulations to you and your White Sox. They keep on rolling.
We'll see next week. The games count.
That's right, buddy. Have a great weekend, Rick. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, bet.
Thanks,
Hall of
Rick.
Fame writer Rick Bozich from WRB.com joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. Brought to you by the great folks at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. If you're down in Southern Indiana, pizza, burgers, and beer. That's a great place to watch a game and eat, period. So stop in there right off of I-65 there in Clarksville. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
Now this segment's empty. The next one we have Elton Hayes at 10:40.
Sir Elton.
Sir Elton. I tell you what, I almost called him because we had him on the podcast last night. I almost called him Earl. For some reason, I kept wanting to call him Earl. I never did. I got it out of my system before he joined us, but I kept wanting to say Earl for whatever reason. Isn't there like a Dixie Chick song or something called? No, wait, there's a TV show called. I was thinking of a TV show called My Name is Earl.
There was a TV show too, yes.
That was a great show. I've seen that all the way through.
It was a pretty good show. I watched it. Yep.
Was last night the concert?
What concert?
You said you had a concert this week you were going to.
Yeah, I didn't go.
Oh, you didn't?
Be right back, guys.
All right.
Ross
Ross
has
is a
multiple
Gators fan.
locations
Oh,
and something
Gators
for
fan.
everyone. Sam's Restaurant in Fishers has homemade coffee cakes and much more. Sam's Place in Broad Ripple has wings, tender steaks, and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It is Wednesday. It is Hump Day. There were some big name changes we've forgotten about in college basketball. North Carolina has got a new face. Hubert Davis.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I mean, the Roy Williams has been the face of that program for so long. They won, 3 titles while he was the coach? It's always going to be a transition, right? Yeah, I think so.
I guess they did because Dean Smith only won. He won 2, didn't he?
Right. They beat Illinois in 2005. That was Roy Williams, right?
I didn't think that he won 3, but
no.
You may be right.
Yeah, because I know they won the one in 2009 and then the one in 2017, I believe it was, the year after losing to Villanova on the last second shot. They went 1. But anyway, yeah, you never want to be the guy that follows the guy, right? Like that's one of the biggest cliches about coaching. But Hubert Davis, they didn't really even seem to have a prolonged search. They didn't, as far as we know, they didn't hire a search firm. They didn't do anything like that. They found a guy that they believe kind of represents some continuity within their program and decided that they wanted to basically extend Roy Williams' tenure under a new face. And they're hoping that can kind of maintain the North Carolina brand they've built up over the last 15 years or so, even separately from the brand that Carolina had before under Dean Smith.
Basically the same things going on at Duke.
Yeah.
Just it's going to happen a year later, but we already know the players.
Exactly.
By players, I mean the people that we're talking about here. The coach has already been named.
Yeah, and again, it's another guy who they think is kind of they didn't go out and try to hire a hot name from the coaching ranks. They didn't go out and try to get Chris Beard or something like that. They went and they found an alumnus who has not been a head coach before, I don't believe. And they're going to make him the associate head coach for a year, John Shire. Everyone remembers John Shire from his time playing at Duke. And he's already shown that recruits believe in him the way they believed in Coach K. He just got a commitment from the number 2 player in the country in the 2022 class. And so you got to believe that they're going to, that kind of is a signal they're going to continue on the same path they were on of winning basically out Kentucky in Kentucky, which is what they've been doing for the last 5 to 6 years here.
Well, I think that both of those programs were very smart in how they went about that, doing exactly what you just said, allowing for continuity, but also for no confusion or questions from the recruits, or just no void, I guess is the word I'm trying to. There's just no void for the recruits, the guys that they're talking to, which is smart. It's basically a smart business decision is what it is how I look at it. And that will allow them to continue forward, I think, without missing a beat, because while Duke wasn't a great program before Mike Krzyzewski got there, North Carolina was. So they've got greatness built into their bloodlines, but Duke now is in that pantheon of teams. But now it's a machine, I think. And but Krzyzewski was obviously a good coach. You can't have the success he's had and not be a really damn good coach.
Right. But they did take a step back last season. They weren't The players they brought in last year didn't really gel very well. And so it's going to be a question of what's going to happen this year. We don't really know. In Coach K's last year, are the 2021 class that they're bringing in, are those guys going to be able to carry them through to the end of the year? Because the guys last year weren't. They would have missed the tournament, or they did miss the tournament, I believe. And so for the first time in quite a while. And so, yeah, Shire is going to have a little bit of an uphill battle, especially if they don't have a great season this year, in convincing people that Duke is still the team to play for if you want to get to the league, right? Because they've kind of supplanted Kentucky as the place to go if you want to play 1 year of college basketball and then leave. And Kentucky still gets a lot of those guys too, obviously, but Duke has become kind of the mainstay of that kind of style of team building. And so Shire already has one recruit. We just talked about that. But the question is, can he maintain that level? Or are they going to transition back to being, we want to, as Matt Painter likes to say, get old and stay old?
And for the recruits, how much is in a name for them, Mike Krzyzewski? The fact that he's not there anymore. I'm wondering how much that will play into the recruiting that going on with John Shire now. It's like Bob Knight, Knight being at Indiana, playing for Bob Knight at Indiana. Man, there's one group of players, for those years that can say that, and that's it. Playing for Mike Krzyzewski, being able to play for one of the greats of all time, it led a lot of guys to go to Duke, obviously. I wonder how not having that is going to impact Duke now.
Yeah, and I do think it actually, even as Krzyzewski was older and he wasn't the young coach anymore, but what he maintained a connection to younger players because of his connection to Olympic basketball. He had coached LeBron and Kobe and all of those guys in the Olympics, and so that helped. I think that was a huge selling point for recruits, was that, hey, you've coached all these guys, you can help them, you can help me too, and that's something that even that John Shire is not going to have.
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, Duke took a little hit last year, as did Kentucky, and I point out both of those Nike schools. No coincidence there, I'm sure. But who sees a lead? I think North Carolina with Hubert, or there's some name recognition there, and I think that will matter. He played there. He's continuing that North Carolina history run type of thing, because they've got history on their side as well. Where Duke, like I said, is basically under Mike Krzyzewski. Which one of those programs you think are least affected by the coaching change?
I mean, I would say probably North Carolina under Hubert Davis, just because he's a guy who he was obviously a great North Carolina player. He had a long career in the NBA. He's been a North Carolina assistant coach for 10 years now, so he knows this program inside out. Not that Shire doesn't, but I do feel like that Roy Williams was more. North Carolina you were selling North Carolina more than you were selling Roy Williams. And I think Roy Williams did that on purpose. At Duke, in large part, you were selling Krzyzewski because he'd been there for so long. And I do wonder whether that's going to put North Carolina in a better position under Davis, because he's just maybe he's more experienced as a coach than Shire is, and B, maybe it's just that he is a little bit more ready to be that head guy. And I think there's a couple layers to that.
Yeah, and the Blue Bloods need to be the Blue Bloods. People like to see the Indianas, the North Carolinas, the Kentuckys, the Kansases, the Dukes. They want to see those teams be good, whether they admit it or not. Outside of those areas, it just shows in the TV ratings when you have those names. Even when Indiana is not as good as they should be, their TV ratings used to hold for a while. So, and I think that's about to, that I guarantee that's about to return. And that's what's going to be exciting to see those teams be good again together. And I would think that it's out of his control, but I would think that if nothing else, Mike Woodson will lead a charge to get Indiana and Kentucky back on the schedule. He's someone that knows what it means, where Archie couldn't have given a rat's butt.
I do think, though, that that's not going to happen until Calipari leaves. Calipari has clearly made it his mission not to play IU anymore. And at first it was because he didn't want to get embarrassed at Assembly Hall again. But I think later it's been more that he understands that it's really upset. It's really making IU fans mad. And so he's doing it on purpose. And so I think that once Calipari leaves, maybe you have a better chance. But I don't think even Mike Woodson is going to be able to persuade him to get Indiana on the schedule.
Man, well, we'll see. That's just a game that needs to return for college basketball. But nothing else. The NCAA tournament will take care of that.
Which we already saw as recently as, 2016 when IU beat Kentucky in the second round?
That is the one thing that they are good at. That is maybe one of the few things they are good at giving you games that you're not getting, that people are trying not to play.
Yeah. Since the last time IU played Kentucky in the regular season, they have played twice in the tournament. That's pretty impressive from the tournament committee that they decided, hey, the people want to see it, we're going to give it to them.
Oh, Ross said that Archie Miller going to be on an upcoming podcast. That would be like a trip to the dentist.
Honestly, I'd be curious. I disagree. No offense. I disagree because we have not heard one word from Archie Miller.
But what's he going to say? Here's the thing. It's going to be the same thing. He's going to be protected like he was when he was in Indiana.
Well, sure, but I just want to hear his, even beyond anything else, I just want to hear his side of the story. What does he think went wrong at IU? Because clearly it wasn't working. He knows.
Well, he's not going to say that I can't coach and I wasn't there to coach him half the time and I didn't do this, we know what a lot of the reasons are, but he's not to acknowledge any of those.
We'll see. That's the thing is I mean, sometimes when a coach leaves, they'll admit that things went wrong, and here's part of the reasons why. Here's why I could have done better. And I'm curious as to see, and maybe he's bitter, and he thinks that everything was the administration's fault, the players' fault. But I also like to hear that, right? It's just interesting to me. This has been one of the things that I've been thinking about since March. Is that it's just interesting to me that we haven't heard a single word from him since he left the job. The last public statement that Archie Miller made was the day after the day they lost in the Big Ten tournament, where he said, I expect to be back. And we have not heard a word from him since then. And that to me is just really, really interesting. And now if he's finally going on the record, he clearly has spent a lot of time deciding what he wanted to say. So
there's nothing interesting. There's nothing interesting about him to me, but we got to take a break because we've got Sir Elton Hayes waiting in the green room, as you say. He's the CNHI writer for Penn State. Talk about the preview and the Hoosiers and the Nittany Lions when we're back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant. Whether you're looking...
Sir Elton.
What's going on, man? How are you?
How are you doing, buddy?
Trying to beat whatever cold this is that I have. They're calling it the Penn State plague, so hopefully my voice is all right.
There's nothing. They don't have. It's nothing called COVID or anything like that.
Nah, dude, I thankfully it came back negative, so I'm hanging in there, man. I missed the game last week though. I was down that bad.
Dylan Sinn with the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us as well.
What's up, Dylan?
Nice to meet you, man. How are you?
Good, man. Good.
Excited to have you.
Where do you live?
I'm in State College.
You are in State College.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess you almost have to, man.
Yeah, it would suck having to commute here every day.
I've never been there, but I keep hearing it's like it's that and nothing else.
It's like in the middle of the state, and there is unless you're here, you have no reason to be here. It's one of those type places.
Huh.
Man.
But it's cool though. I mean, it's an awesome town once you get here, but you have to have a reason to be here. So
State, and that's another thing. They got too many names.
Happy Valley. University
Happy Valley
Park,
State
University
College.
Park.
I'm like, damn it.
Yeah. It's confusing, man. I still don't know how I should dateline my stories. If it's State College or University Park, if I'm on campus, I just go with State College.
Whoa. Oh, now we got a third one?
Yeah, University Park.
University
I said that a second ago. That's
Well,
what I
Happy
originally,
Valley?
growing up watching sports, I thought University Park was like the main one. That's the first one I heard.
Man.
Well, Jim, you coming up here this weekend?
No, we've got Hoosier Hysteria.
You know, basketball takes precedent up here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
They are
Especially with – go ahead, Dylan.
I was going to say they are accommodating so that Hoosier Hysteria will be over by the time the football game kicks off. They made sure that they did that on purpose.
Well, it's nice of them, you know.
Yes.
At least act like they care about football a little bit.
Yes, exactly.
They used to show the game – like if it was a noon kickoff, they would just show the game on the Jumbotron in the arena.
Yeah, they said they were going to do that again this year, but the game was moved to a night game, so they kind of moved up Hoosier Hysteria a little bit so that it would be so that they wouldn't intersect.
Okay. So, Jim, are you all in on the SEC now that your daughter's down there? I mean, Ole Miss, Alabama.
Well, she's at Ole Miss. They got Lane Kiffin. That's going to be a hell of a game this weekend, man. I'm looking. That's one I want to get to see.
Yeah, it's going to be a good
game. All right, here we go. A few seconds till we come back.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Hotness, now in Bloomington.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back on Hump Day. Joined now by our good friend Sir Elton Hayes from the CNHI Papers and State College, Happy Valley, College Park, wherever else that you're all at the same time.
I think you're thinking University Park, College Park.
University Park. That's too many confusing. How many names do they have and what do they represent?
So State College, that's like the government name, if you want to say.
Is
Happy
it the
Valley's,
city name?
Yeah, that's the city name. Happy Valley's the colloquial name. University Park is the technical name of the campus, since there are a bunch of branch campuses. So I guess three. There's your State College history lesson today.
So Happy Valley is just one, is an unofficial, just something that someone threw in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Just had to, always one of those. You always got to have one of those people. We got enough things going on. Now y'all throwing some more stuff in here. Yeah, it's night game on ABC TV. Big deal for Indiana. But where everyone's wondering is which Indiana team is going to show up. Is the offense going to be there yet? They've had a lot of offensive line woes. The offense has not produced like a lot of us expected it was going to. And Penn State, on the other hand, is freaking rolling, man. Their offense is flying behind Sean Clifford. He's a veteran quarterback, and he is slinging the ball. Is he averaging like 300 yards a game right now? And then Penn State is averaging another 160 or so on the ground. Their offense is rolling.
It's humming. It's humming. I mean, that was the question everyone had coming into this year. The Penn State defense, everyone was pretty confident was going to be fine. Apart from its troubles last year, the defense did its job. It was the offense that was behind. This year, the offense does not show any signs of having any hangover from the 2020 season. I've got a first-year offensive coordinator, Mike Yursich. The players and the offense is responding to him well. It's a quick, fast, up-tempo offense that prides itself on getting the balls and is getting the ball in as many playmakers' hands as possible, and it's been working for them.
I guess I wanted to follow up on that real quick. What is kind of the opinion around town of Sean Clifford? Because I kind of felt like people were out on him after the Wisconsin game, but then he played so well against Auburn. Is it just kind of inconsistency, or what is the general opinion there?
They're loving him right now. You know, in 2019, his first year as a starter, he came in and led them to 11-2 season. Had really good numbers, high touchdowns, low turnover rate. Last year, I mean, 4 games through last season, he had 9 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. 4 games into this season, he's got 8 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. So they're happy with him right now. But I think it's fair. Early in the season, everybody was wondering which Sean Clifford are we going to get. We're going to get the 2019 Clifford, the 2020 Clifford, and right now he's showing us the 2021 Clifford is better than both. So,
yeah, he's him and Peyton Ramsey, former IU quarterback, just remind me of a lot of it. But I didn't know that they were that far apart year-wise. I thought that they were a lot closer together.
Yeah, because they're friends, aren't they? They're from the same area down in Cincinnati.
Well, they played high school against each other.
Yeah.
But very, very similar style guys. But Penn State is getting exactly what they need offensively. Defensively, Indiana has been pretty strong. They have not really struggled a lot this year. Some mistakes and things, but this is going to be probably the greatest test that they've faced. Even Iowa was pretty tough, but that's the first game of the year. This is even more difficult, I think, because you're on the road at night in a place that is a jacked up environment to begin with, but they have a lot of offensive weapons that can do different things. They run the ball well and pass the ball well, and that is a dangerous team to defend.
Yeah. And Jim, let's kind of talk about the elephant in the corner right now. I know James Franklin and players this week are saying that they're not looking at this as a revenge game, but you got to think in the back of their mind, Indiana set them on that 5-game losing streak. Look, it's human to want to get revenge. So I understand that's what they're saying. They're towing the company line, but it's personal for those guys, I believe.
Is there a picture of Michael Penix stretching for the 2-point conversion somewhere in the team facility?
I haven't seen it yet, but maybe they rolled it out on Monday.
Yeah, this is a game but it's also a game that may surprise the hell out of us. Maybe this is the game where Indiana's offensive line starts to gel, and Michael Penix looked a lot better last week. He looked more comfortable. It's definitely the most comfortable he has looked. Although Indiana losing DJ Matthews, that's a huge loss for them because he was really filling a nice niche and allowing him, I think, to grow that passing game out. Indiana's going to have to run the ball on Penn State, and their running game with Stephen Carr has been okay. But, Dylan, I think that when they get into the second half, I don't know if it's the line wearing down, but his carries or his averages usually go from 4 and 5 yards a carry down into 2s and 3s by the time the second half the game ends.
Yeah, I think that's right. And we've seen Carr is very, very good. Like Carr has been as advertised. He's as good as everyone said he was. The line is just not create a whole lot of holes for him. So that's going to be the question is, can they run the ball against, as Elton said, a very, very good Penn State defense?
Well, that's one of the issues that Penn State, I know it kind of defies logic right now. Going into the season, everyone touted the running back group as being, the team's strength. It's the running back unit hasn't been that good this year. I believe they ran for 80 yards against Auburn a couple weeks ago, struggled last week against Villanova. So we'll see. But that's something that I'm keeping my eye on is that offensive line, Penn State's offensive line. Can they get enough push against that Indiana defensive line and open some lanes for those running backs?
And the night game atmosphere at Penn State, even without the whiteout, it's just it's 106,000 people. The noise carries louder at night. I don't know what the weather's like there. If there's humidity, so if it's no humidity, then it's going to be even louder than that. I can only imagine how loud it is in that stadium. I've been in the Big House, and I know how loud that is. So, but it's pretty close.
It's pretty special. My first year up here was 2019. I believe the first night game I covered was Buffalo that year. And to kind of see everyone packing there at night, everyone kind of chanting in unison, everyone kind of being on the same accord, it's special, man. It's definitely a place to visit. If you haven't, we got to get you up here maybe in a couple of years, Jim. But, pack even for a non-whiteout games at night, the energy level's still at 100.
And the fact for Indiana getting this opportunity of playing on national television, this is important for them, Dylan. They can't go out and lay an egg right now. They for so many different reasons, recruiting and their own fan base and all of those things.
Look, I mean, they have the toughest stretch of the season coming up, right? They have Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State back to back to back. There's a not insignificant possibility they're 2-5 at the end of this. They need to get at least one win out of those three to kind of salvage some semblance of the season, and would help to get the first one, right?
Yeah, that Cincinnati game is just going to burn. It's just going to bury in them the rest of the year. That's just going to be. It's because it's a game they should have easily won. Although Cincinnati fans don't think that, I don't think Cincinnati's that good, and I think that's going to be. And since you cover Notre Dame, I'll save that. But I just don't think Cincinnati's that good. But the fact that Indiana could not overcome their mistakes against a team that I don't think is, they're a top 25 team, but Penn State's a top 5 team. There's a big difference, and you've got to be able to overcome your mistakes. And more importantly, you got to stop making mistakes, those kind of mistakes. Stop forcing passes that you don't need to throw, interceptions that you don't need to throw, things like that. It just, they did a much better job with the offensive line and their penalties, but now you've got to have great concern going into a place like Penn State. The noise, you're not going to be able to hear anything. Everything's going to be on hand signals. How they're going to be able to cope with that.
No, I mean, that's a valid point. One of the things that's worked in Penn State's favor this year, comparing again to last year, is the turnover margin. I believe they're at 5 right now, forced a turnover in each game they've played. And, something that I'm interested to see is Michael Penix. He was so dynamic last year. He's a dual threat guy. Obviously, he's a little, I guess, gun shy right now, at least the games that I've seen, and rightfully so. Has seen his confidence level back. But one of the things that I've watched this season is Penn State's defensive line, even when it's not getting sacks, it's getting back to the quarterback and it's hitting them. I wonder how much of an impact there on Michael Penix's psyche that's going to have if that happens on Saturday.
We saw that against Cincinnati, right? Cincinnati, they hit Penix early, and then later in the game, he made some poor decisions. At least one of the interceptions he threw was with a tackler wrapped around his legs. And he was trying to get the ball out, and it was a duck because he had no strength behind it. And so you wonder whether that not even getting to him, but the pressure is going to force him into some poor decisions.
Yeah, and this is a defense that will absolutely not only do that, but capitalize on it if you just give them a sliver of hope. So it's going to be interesting to see how this starts out. Indiana cannot get into a hole. And it cannot get off to a bad start. They've got to control the ball, which they did a good job of against Western Kentucky. But I think part of that's because Western Kentucky just scores the ball so damn fast. Indiana had it back in their hands. But if they can do that, that is probably the only hope. I don't see Indiana being able to get into a shootout right now. They just don't seem like they're there yet. I think their only hope is they have to be able to run the ball and at the very least control the ball possession, keep the ball in their hand as much as possible.
Well, that's a good strategy. Like I said, one of the things that Yurcich has really done since he's been here is that offense. It's fast, it's quick, man. I mean, I watched, what was it, a couple of weeks ago against Auburn, 3-play drives, and they're down there scoring. So they don't want to get into a shootout with Penn State because I don't think Indiana's built to keep up with them right now at that level.
Is Penn State, I know you covered Penn State, is Penn State the best team in the Big Ten? Well, I guess I should start with the Big Ten East first. Are they the best team in the Big Ten East?
And we'll find out soon enough, right? I mean, hey, I guess they're playing very well. I'm impressed. I'd be more comfortable once I see a run game that can kind of complement that offense and kind of balance it out a little bit. I'm not saying it's not there. We saw what these running backs did last year. All of the guys returned. The offensive line is just as strong. I just don't know what's not clicking at this point. But if Penn State can find a run game, a consistent run game to complement the passing offense, then I think they have the argument to be in that conversation.
Yeah, I agree with you. Iowa is a team that I absolutely also see as a top 5 team. I see them. They're very similar to Penn State. I think Penn State has a better passing game without question, obviously, but that's going to be a hell of a Big Ten championship game if that's how it ends up being. And I think for some reason that it might be this year, but who knows? Ohio State may
find out next
regroup.
week when they go there. Penn State plays at Iowa next week, so that should be an interesting one.
And see, that's weird to me. I hate that because you're looking at a potential replay in the conference championship, which I get with the numbers, they don't have a choice, but I hate that there's a possibility of them playing and then playing again, because it's always that second game is never usually the same when you have levels like that. But at least we get a great game next week.
No, it would definitely be a good game. And I answer a lot of our questions. That's the question right now everyone has. Iowa, Penn State, Iowa, Penn State. We'll figure that out. And hey, I know people are kind of, they're not too quick to throw any labels on Michigan, but watch out for Michigan too. They've kind of
the entire Big Ten East.
Yeah,
the Big Ten East is jacked up again, Dylan. I mean, I already talked earlier or this week about the record of the top 5 teams in the Big East has one loss. They're 15-1.
That's insane.
And then the Big Ten West is like 12-9.
Yeah. It basically, if you went 1 through 7, like with 1 versus 1, like they were planning on doing at the end of last year, the Big Ten East would be favored in all 7 of those by like a touchdown, I think. I saw that on Twitter. Like it's wild how unbalanced the divisions are at this point.
Yeah, it's nuts. But just brought up Michigan, and we've got Ohio State. Don't know what they are just yet. They're obviously good. Michigan looking better. Is this the year that Harbaugh gets the win over Ohio State finally? I mean,
no, it is not.
Dylan emphatic on that one.
Exactly.
Why
is that, Dylan?
Because I'm a Michigan fan, and I've watched Michigan for too many years, and they do not beat Ohio State. When?
Back when
15 years ago, I think we're far enough in now that there is a pattern discernible.
Schembechler, back in the Schembechler days.
Yeah, like I will believe it when I see it, and until then, I will never pick Michigan to beat Ohio State.
Kind of like Indiana beating Purdue in basketball now.
There you go. We're dead in there. It's what 9 in a row, 10 in a row, something like that.
9.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I do think it's a little bit of an advantage for Penn State to be playing IU this week as opposed to some other teams, because otherwise they might be looking forward to Iowa.
Yeah.
But they're not going to overlook IU. I don't think, that's for sure.
No, I mean they've got one reason not to, and it's that 36-35 score last year, if you're asking me. But
yeah,
it's going to be interesting, man. A lot of folks have been waiting a while for this rematch.
Yeah, but the revenge thing, I think that goes away as soon as the ball's kicked off, because you start playing, you forget about it. Plus, the year before that, at Penn State, Indiana could have won that game.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the early targeting that took Whop Failure out right immediately, and they weren't able to really recover from that. But that was still a game that they had a shot to win that game.
But no, if you look at it historically, this series has been close the past few years. I mean, I joined the beat in 2019, so obviously I wasn't here for the couple years before that. But in doing research and stuff about this game, I mean, I believe the one down in Bloomington a couple years, 2017 or 2018, was a couple score game that went in Penn State's favor. So hey, if you trust his history and everything like that, it's going to tell you that this game won't be a slam dunk as, in one team's favor as many might think. But I still think at the end of the day, Penn State holds on and gets a 31-17 win. That's my projection.
31-17 is that covers the spread too there. So you got it all around.
I would that's right in line with what I would think too. I think it's going to be about 2 touchdowns. IU keeps it close for a while. Penn State scores late and gets out of there with a win. That'd be my guess as well.
I think they're just too balanced on both sides of the ball, man. And when you have that, that's what you got. That's a reality. Elton, man, it's great seeing you. Look forward to seeing you in person again. Hopefully we got to get you to Bloomington for a game as well. But I'm looking forward to getting up to Happy Valley State College,
University Park,
Beaver Stadium.
There you go.
All that. But looking forward to it, buddy. I can't thank you enough. How's everything going?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. Like I said, I was enjoying life better when I wasn't sick, but I'm going to beat this thing. I'm day-to-day right now, but I plan to be at the game on Saturday and get back in the rhythm. So I can't complain.
Wishing you the best of health, brother. Get well soon. Thanks for joining us.
Man. You all take care.
Thanks,
Appreciate it. Elton Hayes joining us from CNHI in Happy Valley State College. Yeah, that one cracks me up. But we got more. We'll be back with it here on Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Hey, Hoosier fan.
So we'll have about, 13 minutes when we come back.
Okay.
What is the out?
The time, it'll be about, now the live time's always 1:56 if you look at that. That's what we go to.
So it's
on
16
the actual
now.
clock, it'll be 17, it looks like, 11:17. But I'll pop in, obviously, when we're getting close.
Obviously. Dylan, do you have any specifics, things you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, not anything specific, just more. I will be covering Notre Dame, Cincinnati on Sunday, so we can.
I want to talk about that game.
Yeah, we can because
you say Sunday,
Saturday. Sorry, and so Notre Dame has quarterback issues, so we can talk about that a little bit.
Who does Purdue play?
Purdue plays Minnesota. At Minnesota coming off that loss to Bowling Green. Purdue has a chance to get to 4-1.
I said that yesterday. I looked up and I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, after all this, Purdue's going to be 4-1 after this weekend.
Yeah,
are they playing at Minnesota?
I don't believe
they're playing at Purdue. It's at Purdue.
Yeah, because
they are not losing that game.
They got robbed in the Minnesota game last year. Remember the phony offensive pass interference call that took away the winning touchdown.
Hey, Dustin will tell you otherwise. He actually predicted Minnesota to win.
I think it's not out of the question Minnesota wins that game. I think they bottomed out against Bowling Green, and I think they're gonna be ready to go against Purdue. The bigger thing for Purdue that gives you hope for the future is that Oregon State, who they beat in week 1, just took USC behind the woodshed. Now USC isn't great, but man, Oregon State's also 3-1. Their only losses to Purdue.
When you say take them behind the woodshed, did they beat them or did they almost beat them?
That means they beat them like a redheaded stepchild, John.
They were up 45-17 at one point in that game. They ended up winning 45-27. But
I didn't see the game, so I didn't know what that meant.
No, they were up 45-17 at one point. It wasn't luck. They were pushing USC all over the field.
Wow.
And it was wild to watch.
All right, here we go. Excuse me.
By my dream home. And I know you'll continue to be there for whatever my future holds. Because you're my BFF. Banking friends forever.
Right now, get free checking with online banking. And all the products of big city banks with hometown service.
With First Federal, you can do that.
This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Speaking of Southern Stone Restaurant, Saturday is Hoosier Hysteria. It starts at 4. It will be over by around 5:30, I think. I think only in that last 90 minutes. So you've got time to get out and disperse and do some things and then head over to Southern Stone Restaurant and watch the football game.
There you go.
Be a great thing to do.
Yeah, Hoosier Hysteria doors open at 2:30. If you are going, they asked, it's free of charge, but they ask that you bring a donation for the Hoosier Hills Food Bank. But yeah, I mean, they're making sure that you can get out of there before the football game starts, and of course, it's going to be the official introduction of Mike Woodson as the head coach in front of the student body, and it's going to be the introduction of the Indiana women's team, coming off the best season in program history, bringing everyone back. And so you get a nice cheer for them as well. So that'll be fun.
A couple things I want to talk about. You're You're going to Notre Dame, Cincinnati this weekend, I believe.
I am. I'll be in South Bend. Games at 2:30, and it's the biggest game remaining on Notre Dame's schedule. I tell you, if they win that game, there's not a lot between them and another undefeated season, which is crazy to think about considering how poorly they played at the start of the year in some ways. But they beat Wisconsin like a drum on Saturday. And Cincinnati is the last ranked team on their schedule. They did have North Carolina and USC were both ranked at the start of the season, but not anymore.
I think that, and Notre Dame's just getting a lucky break this year. Their schedule, which normally is not. Normally it is a juggernaut. Normally they have built-in games that are just tough games.
And they still do have to go to Lane Stadium in Blacksburg and play Virginia Tech and enter Sandman and all of that. So they have that coming up as well. They had this stretch of 5 games where they played Wisconsin, they play Cincinnati, then USC, Virginia Tech, and North Carolina all in a row. So that 5-game stretch with a bye built in there at one point, it looked a lot tougher earlier in the season when USC and North Carolina were both at one point in the top 15 in the country. Not quite as daunting anymore. Virginia Tech also has fallen off since beating North Carolina in week 1. So this is the game for Notre Dame. They haven't lost at home since September of 2017. They've won 26 in a row at home. It's going to be a very, very fun game. The question mark right now for Notre Dame is who's playing quarterback, because Jack Cohn, their starter, he got hurt in the third quarter against Wisconsin. Backup Drew Pine played the rest of the game, led a touchdown drive, played very well. Cohn has a soft tissue injury in his leg. We don't really know a whole lot about it. Brian Kelly says that if Cohn is healthy, he'll be the starter. It's unclear whether he is going to be healthy and what percentage they consider healthy. Is it 100%? Is it 90%? Is it 80%? We're not sure. And so we probably won't find out who the starter is until Thursday at the earliest, when Kelly has his pregame press conference as well. So Notre Dame could be playing Cincinnati with a guy making his first collegiate start under center.
I'm trying to quickly find the spread on that game.
I believe it is Cincinnati -3, -2, somewhere in there. Cincinnati is favored despite Notre Dame being at home.
I am going to, if that is the case, I'm not a big bettor. I will jump all over that. Cincinnati is overrated.
I came away from the Indiana game thinking that. I do wonder maybe if they're just a second half team. It is 2.5. Cincinnati -2.5. I did come away from the Indiana game thinking that Cincinnati was somewhat overrated. Indiana pushed them around for quite a while, and their offense was pretty much asleep. It was the same thing against Murray State, where Cincinnati was tied at 7 against Murray State at halftime. They ended up winning that game 42-7. Maybe they're just more of a second half team. But the problem for them is that Notre Dame is also a second half team. In the last 3 or 4 years, there is almost no team in the country that has done a better job of making halftime adjustments and figuring things out than Brian Kelly and Notre Dame. They've done a really, really good job of that in recent years. And so you wonder that the chess match there will be a lot of fun. And of course, it's going to be an emotional game as well for Brian Kelly, who was Cincinnati's coach for 4 years before coming to Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame's defensive coordinator, was at Cincinnati until last year. It's going to be an emotional day in South Bend for these guys. And of course, Cincinnati, this is their whole season, right? They don't have anything, at least on paper, that should be difficult for them the rest of the season after this. If they win this game, they are a legitimate college football playoff contender. They will have beaten 2 Power 5 teams, and you have to kind of at least consider their resume at the end of the season, assuming they're undefeated. And so this is their entire season, and they're going to be up for this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they have also benefited from a schedule that should be tougher than it really is. Yeah. Indiana should have lost Indiana. Indiana should, if they had just a semblance of offense and not make the silly mistakes, they win that game easily. And I don't think that this is a game that they're going to win. I think Notre Dame will win this game with either of their quarterbacks. But We'll see. That's why they play the games. Playing at Notre Dame is going to be tough. On top of that, that may be one of the roughest environments Cincinnati has played a regular season game.
Oh yeah, they are, and Notre Dame. They had the first game against Toledo was not exactly the environment they were hoping for, because there was some issues with parking and fans weren't able to get into the stadium and things like that. But it was much more lively when they played Purdue a couple weeks ago. So they are going to be ready for this game. It's going to be fun, and yeah, it is a game where we're going to find out, much like against Wisconsin, where that we weren't really sure how good either of those teams is. And I think we kind of found out more about Wisconsin in that game than we did about Notre Dame. I think Wisconsin just isn't particularly good, mostly because Graham Mertz isn't very good at all. We're going to find out a lot about both of these teams in this game, and you're right. I do think that Cincinnati is a little bit overrated after watching them play IU. But they did win that game. Good teams find a way to win, and they found a way to win. They forced turnovers. They stopped IU in the red zone multiple times when they needed to. Notre Dame has not been particularly good in the red zone. So if Cincinnati can maybe force some field goals, hang around a little bit, and make a play at the end, there's a chance here.
Iowa, Maryland. Iowa is only a 3.5 point favorite on that game.
Yeah. People are buying Maryland. I don't know if I am quite yet.
Tagovailoa is playing extraordinarily well.
Tagovailoa might be the best quarterback in the Big Ten so far this year, which is wild to think about. Now it's a down year for quarterbacks in the Big Ten, but he's been very, very good. They win ugly though. They barely beat Illinois. I will say that their win against West Virginia was very impressive, especially considering what West Virginia has done since then. Basically Maryland played West Virginia better than Oklahoma did. So Mike Loxley clearly has something going up there in Maryland. I don't know if they're good enough to beat Iowa. I think that Iowa defense is just so good, and they're going to make life difficult for Tagovailoa. But it would be something for this Maryland program to win that game, and they immediately become, if they do win that game, they immediately become one of the contenders in the East. Another contender to add to the pile of Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State.
This may be the strongest year. I'll have to go back and look, of course, but just thinking, I don't recall a year where you had the Big Ten East was this strong and deep. Normally, when you have that, you've got most likely an Ohio State team that is really up there, and then these are all Penn State, Ohio State, maybe Michigan State, maybe right there together.
Yeah.
They may be, we have to see these games played, but I haven't seen a lot to separate them.
Yes. And what I will say is, if you are an Ohio State fan, I'd be worried. Not worried. Like I've made my position clear about Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State's going to win that game. But Penn State, Michigan State, Maryland, Rutgers, even those games, like if Ohio State expects to win all four of those when the year started, there is a chance they go 2-2 in those games. Ohio State has not lost 3 games in a regular season in a year where they were not on probation since, I believe, 2005. So it is going to be extremely interesting to see how they play some of those games, because they have not played a really good game so far this year.
Forrest agrees with you on the Minnesota-Purdue game.
Yeah. Purdue is also having quarterback issues. They don't really know who their quarterback is.
That's a game Purdue just really can't. Well, I say they can't afford to lose, but in the West, you've got a lot of other ways to make that up. But yeah, getting to 4-1 would.
It would definitely be a sign that the momentum is back at least a little bit at Purdue. They haven't looked super impressive yet this year, but they did play. They beat Oregon State, who's looked good since then. They played Notre Dame semi-tough, and obviously they looked very, very good against UConn. And then they beat Illinois despite having their 2 best running backs out, their top wide receiver out, and their top cornerback out. And then losing their best tight end in the middle of the game. So they are hurting right now, and that's part of the reason I think Minnesota has a chance in this game. But after the Minnesota game, they play Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Michigan State, Ohio State. I don't know if I see a win in there for Purdue, except maybe against Wisconsin. So it's going to be – this is a game
this going to come down again to the bucket game determining bowl eligibility for both teams.
It would not surprise me if both teams are 5-6 going into that game. It would not surprise me at all.
I absolutely see Indiana has, because of the Cincinnati loss, they're going to be on that path, I'm afraid.
Yeah, unfortunately for IU, yeah. And Purdue, there's a chance that they win Saturday, then lose 5 in a row, beat Northwestern, and they're 5-6 as well going into the IU game.
Well, let's hope not. But you're not going to be at Hoosier Hysteria. That's right. You're going to be at the football game. But so we'll see you next week, man. Have a great rest of your week. And thanks as always. And have fun this weekend.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim. Always glad to be on.
Always big thanks, of course, to Rick Bozich, as always. Thanks to John, the producer. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we've got nothing to do. But we're back tomorrow to do it all again. Dustin Schutte, Chris Tenori, Matt Taylor. See what else we can get going. Go out and have yourselves a great day. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.